Welcome to PolyCast, a Civilization podcast focused on game strategy. Dan Q.
Makalua.
The Me and Team.
Mad Jin.
With guest co-hosts
Canuck Soldier.
Zoldar.
That's a bit too casual for me. But it could still be funny if something funny was said around it. But anyway, we will...
Dan takes this podcast seriously.
Trying to think of, we could act like he's a...
This is episode 270. Welcome to everyone. In attendance is Zoldar.
Hello, I'm actually here as my lawyer self today. This is Daniel Cole, Esquire, so we actually are getting to talk about legal issues. But yes, my handle is Zoldar.
Mad Jin.
Hey guys, Merry Christmas. This is my last episode.
Of the year before everybody panics.
Yes. It's all our last episode this year.
Or celebrates. I mean, I don't know. We don't know what our people who listen think of Mad.
Makalua.
I'm only 0.5 through the way of my cup of coffee.
The Me and Team.
Hello.
And of course, Daniel Quick, our gracious host.
Hello, hello.
And myself, Canuck Soldier. I'm the owner of Civ Players, and I've been doing this multiplayer gig for, I don't know, somewhere around the last decade or so. So if you want to come play some semi-competitive Civs, welcome to come by civplayers.com and join us in Steam chat and have some fun.
Multiplayer gig. So I'm going to interpret that as you're getting paid for that now. Okay, good to know.
Yeah. Well, only in good wishes. Yeah.
Man, just come in here and see how big it is. It's 200 population big. There's a 200 population super city. I see it on Reddit here, made by Proc Blocked, kind of an appropriate name considering. He basically took the time to spam out 30 neighborhoods, 20 stadiums, 80 trade routes, and then hit and turn from what he says nearly 1,000 times, and he got himself a 300 population city. That's pretty impressive. And one of the top comments is that it looks like a good nuke target, and I agree. That would be so juicy to drop a nuke down on the center of that. It certainly looks pretty impressive, and good luck getting utility out of all that population. But you know, it's interesting.
Yeah, make sure a good screenshot.
Yeah, no real districts in the city, so no specialist use at all.
I mean, you need the neighborhoods and stadiums to do it, so yeah.
Well, all the stadiums are in the other cities, so that's the point.
Yeah.
The surrounding cities, so that they reach.
It's kind of amazing. Like a 7-pop city with a couple factory overlap modifiers is probably more useful than the 300-pop city, but this is still kind of amusing to look at.
Well, it's nice to show that it can happen.
Yeah.
Not that it's useful, but it can happen.
Yeah, it shows the importance of putting your cities closer together to have overlapping districts.
Well, this doesn't show the importance of much anything, considering how suboptimal it is, but it is nice to have cities close together for the overlap bonuses, adjacency bonuses, and what have you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that this is a thing, because it's a new thing.
The game is so dependent on districts that you play around that, basically.
PolyCast has been renewed for season 11. I don't know about that modcast and turncast thing, though. No, just kidding. They've been renewed, too.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, we're just going to cut off turncast. No more weekend games. Nope. Play by yourself, scrubs.
The first Civilization 6 patch has arrived. It has been branded the Fall 2016 update, which of course has already led to some comments about how North American-centric of you.
Oh,
Yes.
really? Are getting... it's not
Always.
just millennials. There's no age limit on that.
Oh, no, this was North versus South. This wasn't North American. This was North versus South.
Hemisphere, yeah, true. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Them
I mean,
people don't
they're
know.
located in North America, so what their dates are going to go with. I mean, geez.
All right, to be air quotes politically correct, the late 2016 update. Define late. It's a 2.1 gigabyte download. Hello. There are the new maps 4-Leaf Clover and 6-Armed Snowflake. Oh, how appropriate for those enjoying the winter season. Designed to encourage more conflict by forcing players to move towards the center, quote-unquote.
Playing a snowflake map, and every single land hex of my entire peninsula is just the war cards.
Well, okay, you go.
So where do the rebels spawn if that happens?
Okay, go start a game of Civ 6 right now and find out if it works.
Yeah, I want
I'm
to
not
see
actually doing this. Are you kidding me? I hate tedium.
Yeah, note to self, Phil is not invited to any MP games.
Yeah.
I didn't know Anaraki that bad last week.
You're attempting to lag the game.
There's always the surprise naval attack. If you can pull that off a little later on in the game,
It also doesn't completely shaft naval civs. That's one of the great things about the snowflake map design, is that if you have a water-based civilization, you are not completely hosed. In fact, you can be quite strong potentially. The percentage of the map that your units are relevant is pretty high, and you'll have a lot of use from your cities as well. So like being somebody like England or even Norway, you have some plays you can make there that other civs can't because of your uniques, where you just wouldn't see it the same way, even on Inland Sea, but especially not the one big continent type maps.
Yeah, and Inland Sea and other standard maps tend to be a little large per player right now, and Snowflake and Cloverleaf are a little more cozy, enough that early wars can happen if you choose to go that direction.
That's tough, though, because of the distances.
Yeah, Inland Sea, you're really, unless you randomly get put close, it's very much build up until probably medieval, and then attack from there in.
I think it's pretty hard to rush people on Snowflake, like a true rush, classical or pre-classical. There's too much distance relative to the online speed to make it cost-effective unless somebody's really just not building units.
Well, the problem with online speed is it makes it so fast to build stuff.
Yeah.
That the balancing between, okay, a unit on standard speed might take 5 turns, whereas the district might take 15 based on your production. When you go to online, it's like 1 versus 3. And it's like, yeah, I might as well build that district.
Yeah,
online speed might not be the best for competitive.
Well, there's balancing to do there, but that's why I tend to, like when I run tournaments, probably start medieval. That kicks the game off a little better in that. But yeah, it's not perfect by any means.
I just think the tuning there on faster speeds, and this is not new to Civ 6. This has been a problem since Civ 4, at least.
But I know I've told Ed Beach that we still need a dual kind of mirror map, and I know that's probably a next patch thing, but it is definitely going in the right direction.
Yeah, they do seem to be making maps that are more specifically oriented towards a tournament-type map.
And also, the patch does reportedly not break saves, and yes, sorry, this is only available for the PC release at the present time, continuing the time-honored tradition of the staggered release of patches. Enjoy. So you know about that being able to play multiplayer? Yeah, when that comes around, hopefully.
You could love that.
Yeah.
You could. It is enabled. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a version mismatch.
There's cross-platform MP, we promise.
Yeah.
Yes, for a week or two out of the year, every couple of months.
Do they need to really encourage more conflict in Civ? I mean, especially in MP, that seems not a problem. What it seems like to me they would need to do is make less combat more efficient. Like, I'm not going to go into an MP game and try to win by science or culture. I'm not, because I know I'm going to lose.
Well, I look at the map specifically in the multiplayer scenario for trying to, however we define this, oh gosh, here we go again, like a balanced start situation, or have a comparable start, given that you start on part of the lattice of the snowflake or part of the leaf of the clover.
Something that's less RNG dependent for basic multiplayer.
Yeah, I mean, Pangea is a random crap show, and Inland Sea, it's a little more fair, but someone starts out in the east or west, gets a little more land. If you're north and south, not so much, the way that map generates.
I couldn't help it, seeing as how it's the last episode recording of the year, and I'm still me last time I checked. I tried to make a top 10, just the most notable things, which of course is also open to interpretation. Number 10, allow multiplayer lobbies private game status to be toggled once the lobby has been created. Although, there's still kind of a thing.
Pause the game.
Yeah, there was a 1 step forward, 2 step back there, but that's just to get us keep playing the game, see? Because if we didn't play the game after the patch, then we wouldn't know about it, and I think that's part of 2K's plan all along. Yep, I'm going to go with that. Number 9, updated to display what cities are getting amenities from each resource. We talked about before, it's like, no, you could micromanage that, but no, the game's going to figure that out for you on the turn rollover once you get an amenity hooked up, and then you can see at a glance what it has decided for you. I would still like the ability to mess around with that, but okay, at least we're a bit more transparent.
I still prefer the automated version, just because there's a number of things going on in the game that you don't want to be forgetting, because then you'll have people complaining.
Oh, I agree. It should be automated by default. I just like the ability to go in and tinker. Even if I end up screwing myself, then I have no one to blame but myself. Number 8. Increase the number of great works of writing slots in the amphitheater to 2. So does that maybe mean my great writers might be useful in the future?
Instead of having a whole stash sitting around your capital.
Just go kill things. You're good.
Well, you might want to wait for whatever civ you're conquering to actually use the great writers, seeing as how you can't capture them.
There's just like rows of artillery and mechanized infantry and crap just standing outside the city. Like, come on, man, just do it. Just do it.
Write that book.
And that's
Like,
when you
come
know.
on, just shoot already.
Really don't need that much tourism output to overthrow like one city with all pillage tiles, though, as it turns out. Especially if the person who conquer last is not the guy who was investing in culture. There's really not a lot of resistance left there.
And I say, it's why they don't need to encourage more conflict in Civ.
Well,
Civ was, at least when it started, and it's, even I think in the openings now, is supposed to be like all pro-humanity and progress and aren't we wonderful? And then we play this game where basically everybody plays it and just kills all the other civilizations. There's kind of a mismatch, I think, there.
Yeah,
maybe,
but
although that's kind of how history likes to pay lip service to humanity and all that crap, and then you have major conquests going on, so whatever.
True.
Auto cycle units is now available in the options menu. I know we've talked about this. I know you could go in and edit the INI file, which I actually did. But it is nice that in the game proper through the UI, that can be disabled. Thank you.
Can we make unit cycling as an option actually a functional option so that it's not a false choice to leave it on? Please.
No,
this is a patch.
An entirely different patch.
To be fair, there are more glaring priorities in the UI.
On the interest of exposing things from the INI to in-game, there's still a long list of other ones that really should be exposed.
Oh, yeah. AI with neutral relationships should, I enjoy the word should accept delegations barring exceptional circumstances.
Like being the human.
Yeah, it's nothing like at the start of the turn, it's like, hey, I've sent my delegation, will you accept? Yes, same turn, I'd like to send a delegation, go away.
Yep.
Huh?
What? Huh? You changed your mind in 10 nanoseconds?
Yeah, so, because the key was always, whatever turn you meet the AI, I hope you've got the 10 gold in your bank to be able to have that delegation. Otherwise, there's a good chance next turn, frowny face, because, first impressions were not so good. Negative first impression. You didn't send us a delegation on the first turn we met, so now we hate you. What? No, that wasn't the thing. But anyway, number 5 on the list, and I actually combined 2 points from the patch list. It can no longer declare a joint war if it is invalid for either party, and players will no longer receive any warmongering penalties from a joint war partner for actions in that joint war. Thank you?
Yeah, that's a good change.
Yeah.
Kind of nice.
That's kind of we were just making certain you guys were paying attention. We were paying attention. Number 4, increased AI competitiveness and building a more advanced military and increased AI value of upgrading units. I think allegedly. Honestly, I'll take any increase.
Yeah.
It might be insufficient still overall, but any increase is welcome. It can seem kind of odd at an immediate glance, but at number 3, and speaking of increasing AI use, increased AI use of settler escorts. Yeah, that was a problem.
Allegedly.
Well, especially on
No
DD.
more free settlers.
Yeah.
Well,
DD, hey, start with 3 settlers. You plant one, you might plant the second one, and then the third one just sits there.
The AI still doesn't actually escort its bonus from difficulty settlers very effectively, to say the least.
Well,
it's
yeah,
a little bit better with ones it builds in a city, but for the ones it starts with, not so much. Now, if there's a good amount of space between them and you, it doesn't matter so much, but yeah, you can shank the settlers if you so choose pretty easily still.
Along with that, increased AI use of settler escorts. I've still seen post-patch settlers that have not been escorted. So you do have to work a little more at it, but if you're coming around with, say, pikemen and it's defended by a warrior, I'm not particularly concerned.
Yeah.
It's just, that's cute.
Also, settlers should not stay settlers. Seriously.
This is better, but we still have a way to go to getting to where we should be in that respect, yes?
I don't really care that much. It's because like newly founded cities are basically sitting ducks anyway.
Yeah, but it's the trade-off. I could just go steal your settlers and make my cities, or I can lose pop in my cities and therefore slow me down.
Well, the trade-off there is timing, because you could just take the AI cities later too and not have to all in sooner with your units or whatever.
Yeah,
Right.
but the AI
You can
settles
make
cat
Well, the
cities.
AI, when
You can
take
make a
the
case there, is all I'm saying. If you want to snipe a settler, you have to catch the AI when it is moving the settler out. And that does take a different investment than just taking cities later. You don't get the AI's production bonus investments that they put into those cities, and then you take it. And then you have a couple pop. You're repairing districts instead of building them. That's assuming, of course, the AI built a competent district, but whatever.
Speaking of resource commitments, number 2 on my list of most notable items from the first Civilization 6 patch, deleting a unit no longer provides gold. /
Yay!
Yay.
And this slash part is what most of the visceral I was seeing specifically on Civilization Fanatic Center was over kind of recurring back and forth. Units may no longer be deleted when they are damaged.
Yay!
No more
For the love of
cheating.
God, who ever thought that this was a good idea? More on the deleting units gave equal gold to almost what you bought it for.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, that
whoever
had to
thought
come
that was a
down.
good
That
idea,
had to come down.
like, even in Civ 5, that wasn't there. So why would you just somehow create an economy? Like, that's got to be so stupid. I'm not even sure why anybody would even test for people being dumb enough to go, hey, you know what's a good idea? Something with 1 hit point gets you all of your money back when you delete it. Woo!
And of course, the point then came up, well, if a deleted unit no longer provides gold, then if you delete a unit when it's damaged, what's the big deal? And of course, the response to that has to do primarily with experience that is being denied.
Actually, it's not even that. I can give you a nice list, although it's a short one. So 1, experience to your opponent. Now, in this case, let's talk more multiplayer. If you get down to like 1 hit point or whatever, you take a couple shots and then you delete the unit, haha, it's deleted. So what does that do for you? That lets you get around giving your opponent more experience to get better stuff. It gets around you taking war exhaustion, because you take war exhaustion every time you fight, and when your unit dies, you take more war exhaustion. So deleting that actually gets around 2 mechanics right there. 3rd, theological units, similar situation, because theological units are also part of this. If you have a theological unit that's about to die because, well, you're surrounded and don't have a unit to protect it, then when it dies, if it's an apostle, there's that big burst to reduce pressure. So deleting your theological unit when it has damage.
When it's about to get pwned.
Yeah, when it's about to get pwned, means that, oh wow, look at me, I'm so skilled, I can ignore mechanics.
I just feel like it's that much more of an advantage to a player to capture the settler as compared to the AI capturing your settler, simply because of all of the things that the AI gets to use, quote-unquote, against you, all of the dirt bonuses that it gets. So by giving me a settler, I realize it's not completely free, but I feel like I'm ahead. I mean, I'm still going to be ahead if it's a builder, don't get me wrong, but that means I can go out and I can stake some claim. I can claim more territory, and I can start using something with that right away, which is a considerable advantage as opposed to having a builder. You should still be rewarded for capturing it.
If you use that advantage as a framework for determining whether or not something should be around, then you should also nerf yourself and use crappy districts early on, not settle nearly enough cities, and other things relative to the AI in terms of advantage, because honestly, there's no difference. Or, like, don't defend yourself adequately against barbs. I mean, the list of stuff that you can take advantage of the AI's ineptitude is enormous right now, and even after several patches, it'll still be pretty large. You're drawing the line somewhere, but it's necessarily arbitrary where you're drawing that line. And if we're not talking about the AI, then we're not talking about starting with a several settler bonus, so then you're not comparing apples to apples any longer.
Well, okay, put it this way. I can steal in multiplayer somebody else's settler, and make a city myself, or they found the city and then I take it and I get more penalties for taking a city that's not mine.
You also have to be capable of sniping that settler, which is mobile, in contrast to the city, which isn't. And the city
That's
strength
still
of a
neither here
newly
nor
founded city is pretty low. So,
Depends.
well, in the early game we're talking here, it's pretty low. Like, you probably can't take it with just one warrior, but a couple warriors or basically anything else, like stuff you actually use in multiplayer, then you can take it very easily.
Yeah, taking the city is not the point. The point is the long-term negatives associated to taking somebody else's city rather than planting one of your own.
Yeah, that's fine. It's harder to do. It's harder to take a settler against somebody who's actually has something upstairs than it is to take a weak city. Because they can move the settler away, they can block you with units, they will probably be escorting the settler, and you have to get there faster in order to even have a chance at doing it. So you have to make significant investment, enough to overcome their escort, and take that settler, and you have to do it fast enough before they plant. If you make that military investment and fail to snipe the settler, then you're behind instead.
Yeah, you're talking about early game, though. I'm talking about period.
Well, this is not really a serious consideration after the early game. Like, in the BCs is the only time you're realistically going to see this scenario where it actually matters. Come on now.
To further on the point, imagine are on the same side. What the hell is happening right now? Anyway.
Because you're going against me, of course you are.
Hang on here. I've agreed with you against Mad before, but anyway.
That's true.
The thing is about the military investment, I find that I've already invested in that military, and it's just incidentally, here's something else I can use with that unit. I agree if you're thinking, I'm going to go out and this unit's sole purpose that I'm constructing this unit is to hope to be able to whack-a-mole on a settler before it founds a city. I agree.
Yeah, but remember, Matt and I were talking about multiplayer here just a moment ago. Yeah. It's much more difficult to have incidental military that can take people's stuff, if they're any good, than it is to take stuff from the AI, which doesn't actually defend its settlers and sends them to random places.
Yeah, but okay, your argument is kind of weak, because if I build enough military to do what you're considering, which is, the human player is going to have their entire freaking army around that settler because, well, apparently that's what you have to overcome in your scenario. Well, what's the difference between that and just taking the city? There's none. I'd still have to overcome their whole military just to get a city versus that settler. But the
timing, you have to build all that military right away, and it takes more military to break a defensive position. That's just the reality of the tactics.
Except the point is, what you get out of taking a settler is very different than what you get out of taking a city. There are more downsides to taking a city.
To accomplish that, what you have to give up in the early game is not insignificant.
No, it isn't.
No, it's not.
No, if I build a military sufficient to take over your settler, I probably built a military sufficient to take over your cities.
All of them?
There's a difference in timing there that matters. That you have to cut builders to do that, basically. Or cut your own settler.
Earlier, you'd have to find the settler. And so you have to have scouting out faster.
Presumably you're scouting just fine. I'll give you that.
If you start throwing on too many...
You cut either settlers or builders out of your build, or else they're going to have similar stuff to what you have when you're settling yourself elsewhere with your own constructed settlers. So you have to cut your own settler out, or you have to cut builders out in order to make enough military to beat the escort. Presumably, you're not throwing out an unescorted settler somewhere while you're loading your military in that direction to try to snipe somebody else's settler. I mean, I guess
you might.
But you could lose it to Barbs, you could lose it to a third player.
Yeah.
This is not
I think you're trying to throw up extra little quibbles every single time.
No, this is not a quibble. You have
things.
to invest more faster to overcome an escort for a settler.
Right. So let's assume that did happen. Just for fun. Let's just assume that I actually built military first, took out this giant army that is apparently blocking my way to this one settler. I just wiped out your whole army in that area. Taking out the city is, in the same circumstances, pretty freaking easy at that point.
Okay. I see where you're coming from. Now here's the problem. You didn't succeed. Look at the relative positions if you didn't succeed in taking that city, even if you don't lose any units.
It doesn't matter, though. Here's the point.
If you settled the city yourself with 2 cities and an intact army, if you cut builders and settlers to make this offense and this offense failed, you are further behind than you would have. You're
forgetting the point of my argument, though. Taking the city has long-lasting consequences because, 1, it's occupied till the war's over, but that eventually could be resolved. But 2, because I didn't personally settle that, that city will now get jacked by war exhaustion penalties, and it will get jacked faster than any other city. Now, if I take your settler, all of a sudden I planted my own city, and it doesn't get jacked by mass war exhaustion penalties. And
You
it's
can
not
probably come in and pillage a bunch of your tiles and make you go for peace and not have to take one of your cities.
I'm fine with that. If you have to cut your settler and builder to make a successful attack, then I'm fine with you not having those penalties if you succeed. I don't see anything wrong by design there, necessarily.
All right. It's clear we've got some kind of like battle lines drawn here. It's interesting that this discussion has emerged on this episode simply because I haven't seen this point that I put on my top 10 list as as enthusiastically debated in the Civ community as a next point that I'm going to be getting to. Mackie, on balance, where do you fall on this?
I'm going to have to go game by game whether that's worth it to go try to take either the city or the settler. It depends on what I'm trying to do, too. And also in multiplayer, that's different. I mean, I'm more likely to take a risk like that and try to take the cities and take the settlers. I got you guys for backup.
Yeah, I think that the core point here is whether or not settlers stay settlers versus getting converted to builders.
If you change that back to it being builders, then it's not necessarily worth it unless you're like 2 turns away with your settler and you wanted to settle there.
All right, what about you, John?
Well, I'll say that if you've got a military force to take that settler that's escorted, you probably chose to build that force because you were planning on rushing one of their cities anyway, that they forward planted. As far as the settler versus builder, I think Civ 5 had it right, that if you take a settler that's a little bit overpowered right now, to grab the settler gives you a free city. That's already been mentioned, that now you've got a free city that you don't have war weariness on like you would if you had to take the city. So I think there's definitely room there to go back to the way we did things in Civ 5. Now the balance between should I attack the city or hope that there's a settler around that's only minorly escorted, chances are if you've decided to build military to go up against your neighbor, who hopefully is a tad smarter than AI would when you're playing single player, hopefully, you know that you've made a conscious decision not to plant a few more cities yourself, build builders, other options in the game. You're going for the early war, and you've made that resource commitment. If you come upon a settler, yeah, you're going to take it. It's definitely too much of an easy tactics. Nothing should be cut and dry in Civ. That's the mantra of Ed Beach. If you've only got one right decision, probably the game is not balanced the way it should be.
You're looking just at the decision of when you already have the military, should I take the settler or not? The decision is, should I build the military in the first place? And when you're
No, that has nothing to do with it.
And when you spread it out that far, that's part of the decision making.
That has nothing to do with any of the argument. The argument is whether or not settlers stay settlers or settlers stay builders.
Right, and that's the balance. If they stay settlers, is that overpowered? And the argument becomes then, not if I should take this settler if I see it, but should I set myself up so that if I see a settler, I can take it?
John's point is also that there shouldn't be a one strategy, but if you look at it from the other direction, if you make it not viable to take that starting settler...
That's also one strategy.
Then you have the one strategy of everyone just settles out cities with escorts because there's no risk. It's such a downside, or it's more of a downside to go offensive, that even if you succeed, you're behind relative to other players who were not damaged by a rush or rushing.
Well, no, you're still damaged by creating a settler and losing it, because you lost the pop, you lost the growth time, you lost the production time.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that the person who rushes successfully should not be behind a third or fourth person who just settled their cities peacefully. In principle.
No,
if their rush succeeds, they should not necessarily be behind. And if you make it so that you don't get these benefits from rushing, it gets to the point where there's not a lot of incentive to do it, and therefore you also have less incentive to consider that threat from your opponent and defend yourself more than you would otherwise.
Yeah. Well, you still have the benefit of wiping out the other person.
Yeah, but in like a 3, 4, 5, 6-man free-for-all, you could easily put yourself behind, even with a successful rush, if it's too costly or the benefits conferred are too small, to the point where you're handing somebody else the win from your early rush. And that could happen in Civ 5, and you did early rushes, certainly.
Yeah.
I agree, yeah.
Final... That literally everybody ignored that one person, because it's a multiplayer, if you're talking 5, 6 people. It is entirely possible that somebody gets left alone. I would assume that's... player's fault for leaving one person alone to do that.
They're to go become a runaway human.
Yeah. So in the interest of time, the final word on this particular point, and I know we're going to come back to this next season because clearly there is so much salt, but the final word to John.
A lot of good discussion, but I'll say going back to the root cause is capturing settlers too strong as opposed to just getting workers, builders out of it. Yes, I think it is for now. I think we could go back and just have, if you capture a settler, you get a couple builders.
What I put on my list at number 1, which I was surprised, on the CFC thread, I think it was mentioned in like the late teen pages that someone pointed out, by the way, there's this, and then there was absolutely no conversation about it afterwards. Maybe just got lost in the discussion. But to me, number 1, units may no longer remove features from tiles that are not owned by that player.
Yay!
Thank you.
Important.
Yeah, that's a
All my
good one.
builders can't unbuild your
Chop
district.
your forest. Hello.
No. Well, you could, even before the patch, you couldn't chop somebody's stuff down in an actual other person's territory.
Yeah,
You couldn't do that. I
it was the
tried.
neutral.
Builder swarms throwing trees down, though.
It was the
Yeah,
neutral
but that's the
territory
thing.
issue.
Yeah. It was like, oh, look, I started with a forest in the tundra. I'm never going to settle in that forest in the tundra. But you know what? That forest in tundra is just about to mass up my economy because I'm going to just mass chop that for all the districts and everything else. Oh, wait, you didn't start near a tundra forest that you can chop down? Aww.
And the other part of it is in Civilization 5, you could be doing that with your worker,
Yeah.
except the farther you went away from the city, there was a substantial decrease in the hammer output you were going to be getting.
Not so
However,
much in Civ 6.
how much in Civilization 6 it was like, hey, this is 1 hex out. And let's also add the other thing that made it super, super juicy, and I'm especially talking about the forest part, but also the fact that jungles work this way too.
You
Yeah.
said juicy. Yeah, no.
I
no,
did.
This is obvious, though. Like, oh my gosh, the scaling on that was obnoxious.
Yep. The further you got into the game, the more you got.
Couldn't you only do it about 3 times though? Since you can use the worker only 3 times, you can
Builder.
Well, yeah,
the
you take
amount of
all
cascading
these,
production
other
you
stuff.
got from that, though, was pretty strong.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
thing,
To
yeah.
say it
If
mildly.
if you're not going to construct a builder or buy a builder and then use its 3 builds, how else are you going to get that hammer output? It was a substantial more investment to do it any other way.
Yeah.
It was still in the end beneficial to build more builders, to chop more. And
Yeah.
definitely it was the one trick pony to rush your neighbor early in the ancient era and get a military victory. It was the way of build cities, build builders, chop, rush with pick a unit of your choice.
Chop more builders. The amount of cogs you got back for that was
Well,
so far outstripping alternative tile improvements that it was ridiculous. Yes.
Well, that's the thing. Also in late game, hi, I'm going to send a swarm of builders to the, say, other continent or other side of the planet.
Oh,
You
gosh.
know these forests you have over
That
here that
nobody's
you're going to put a
using?
national park? Or a national park was going to go here? Yeah.
I'm a chop down Yosemite.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to use it to help construct my oil powered and my aluminum fueled.
Well,
Yeah,
you
don't mind
need
me.
this story over here, do you?
chop out a
No.
space part. Why not? There's a thing in Civ 4. Why not in Civ 6? Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly, yeah, that's
And
right. This
because
game is
by the
about
end game,
gameplay, not
you get,
realism.
Yeah, by the end of the game, you're getting about 200-ish.
Oh, it's
per-
amazing.
I mean, I don't have as much problem with that because the early game is so important to the overall game. But yeah, that was a problem even in the late game.
You get about 200, and each builder can do 5. Well, that's
Yeah.
about 1,000 hammers per, and the spaceship parts are about 3,000 each.
Yeah.
And of course, then if you're
That's
China, you're-
assuming you don't have any modifiers towards it, because those would be applied on the chops, if I'm not mistaken. So you could very easily, if you had a city bordering or closest to those forests, have chopped out a substantial portion of your spaceship construction.
yeah, the serfdom in the Builders game 2+ actions, or of course, if you were China and it already had 4, then it would be 6. It was absolutely delicious. They have marketed that they're trying to make the game go faster, you know, so, you know, that's just...
Yeah, that's all right.
All right.
How could
Anything-
possibly go wrong? The gold
yeah.
thing, I don't know if 0 was the answer. I don't have a problem with 0, but the amount of gold you were getting previously was egregious. It wasn't even in the ballpark of reasonable.
No. I prefer 0 specifically because there is no new balance point for at what point should you delete a unit. There's no, hey, look, let's go scale gold purchase costs and then delete units for what they're worth to buy because I've managed to reduce my gold purchasing costs sufficiently so that becomes a thing. Especially with
there's not a lot of reductions on that right now.
Well, yeah, especially with Venetian Arsenal or Scythia, where you get extras. So you get 2 for 1, and if you put any money against that, that means you can always delete the other one to pay for the, say, maintenance cost of the first one for a while, rather than having to actually have an economy that can afford to have those. The other thing is, which never really brought up in the arguments that I saw, if you go theology, you're spending faith to get a unit.
Yep,
and
faith in the gold.
You're now converting
faith in the gold.
Faith into gold. So even if you get less, you're converting faith, which you may or may not be using for a religious game or anything else, but you're spending that to get gold to pay for something else. And that's just not really something that should be happening, because that's not really the point of going to theocracy to buy units.
I'm not bothered by somebody making units and getting extra units and then converting them to something else. It's a different strategy, but I don't see why it's something that should not be available.
In principle, like if the gold amount from deleting units wasn't significant, it wouldn't matter all that much if you got some. Like instead of getting 160 gold for deleting something, you got more like 20, and there's no way that you could make a cycle there. Like you're still losing out. Yeah. I wouldn't have a problem with it. I think it's safer to just leave it at 0 and have done. But if you were to give some small amount, I wouldn't care about that either. The only real problem here was the cycle of basically running your economy on producing these units at a hammer discount, to the point where, like, if you're Scythia building horses and deleting them, you can have one city fund absolutely run your entire economy on producing horses and deleting them. That's just
That was just bad.
You really shouldn't trivialize the game's economy completely.
Yep. And also the whole point of building units is to combat, not to create a different version of an economy.
That's just one purpose for them. I don't think that's
money. That's fine, but
no, the pillage economy is fine because the game's built around pillaging as well. I built this just so that I delete it is not conducive to game balance.
It's thematically silly. I mean, you might as well just have a build wealth option and balance the build wealth option.
There is build wealth options. That's the point.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there has been in many civs now. That way you don't have to worry about this ticky-tack build delete unit crap.
Yeah. Also, the district projects, which are the build wealth version, there's, 3 different projects that'll give you gold? Encampments, industry, and commerce. Those will all give you gold, and maybe a harbor. There's quite a few. And they're all scaled production. So as you go, you have to pay more and more production, whereas units don't scale up in production. At some point, if you allow any amount of gold out of it, you will find that a high production city can pump out more units in a given set of turns to delete versus just using one of those districts to get gold from production.
I think you'd have a very hard time if you're talking like a 10% return on deletion. But again, it's safer to just leave it at 0 because then you don't worry about it.
I don't have this philosophical problem about somebody using a unit to make money that you all seem to have.
Well, you use it to make money by pillaging.
It's a weird design choice. You're basically using hammers to go into gold, ultimately. That's the question here. So why, from a design perspective, would you make the construction of a unit the best method or even a viable method to produce gold? Why not just produce gold directly?
Then you can use the unit as a unit for a while and then come back and turn it into gold when your needs change. You may need a lot of units for one war, but you don't need them for the war afterwards.
Yeah, but you have to evaluate that then. You're trading off one strategy consideration for another in that case, because you are less penalized for overbuilding units in the scenario where you get gold back. Whereas if you are penalized for overbuilding units, that makes you seriously consider when to stop building units. And you can have too many and lose a lot of money, or too few and lose your war. That's an important thing to be able to evaluate properly. I don't have an issue with that being the design choice at all, if that's the way they want to go.
because it also means that you have to
Not an
build
issue,
your
that being a design
economy
choice.
and use other mechanics other than spam units. Because
Yeah.
if you go with spam units giving you gold, based on the way it was before, obviously, with giving you money, you don't need to build commerce districts. You don't need to build lands out where you make money off the land or work gold. You don't need any of that, which is basically a way of saying all of those mechanics could have just never been built in the first place.
It's a balance thing. You would need it to for a time. I think it makes you lock into one strategy earlier, where if you can't say, well, I have all these units, I guess I have to kill everybody now. Is the only
you can still
strategy I
delete
have.
your units. Yeah, you can just
Right,
delete
but then you
it
don't
if
get if you don't
want
get anything for it, then you're not going to do that.
Well, you do get something.
Is to use them in military.
Yeah.
If you're not going to fight somebody, then you really shouldn't be building units.
So you
Right.
build units to
And-
fight one person. That doesn't mean you want to fight the entire world.
Well, then build enough
of
to beat that
course.
one person, and then stop.
Well, the other thing, and it's kind of been touched upon already, in addition to now the change being that if you delete a unit, you no longer get gold, that lump sum. I also view it as by deleting the unit, you're not bleeding as much gold because you're not paying the maintenance cost for that. Yes, I know there's the policy that reduces the maintenance per turn, but I kind of view it as, okay, this unit has helped my economy by, as has already been mentioned, pillaging and or taking cities, which of course over time ought to contribute to your economy. You kind of have to decide, do I want to keep this city? Am I going to raise this city? For those kind of questions. And then when you're done with that particular unit, if you're thinking, I'm not going to be using this in the immediate future, I don't want to wait to be able to upgrade it and or to spend the gold on it, there really isn't any kind of promotion that I want to be carrying over like that. I need that money now for whatever reason. I need it or I want it, so I go ahead and I delete that unit. I'm not now having the benefit of doing what it is that I could do with that unit, which was the pillage and the take the cities, plus I get more lump sum gold on top of that. It's a reduction in the maintenance per turn, but at the same time, if I just want to go from a hammer to gold conversion, as Phil mentioned, and I haven't actually done this in Civ 6, and I'm trying to remember in Civilization 5, where you got to a particular point and you could say, take 25% of my hammer production output from the city and turn it into gold. So rather than having it, let's build a military unit using hammers to get gold by deleting it, let's just, first off, forget about those steps of waiting for that unit to be constructed and just do that from the outset. Have that hammer production, a certain percentage of that hammer production, go into gold output if you really need the gold that badly.
Yep, and Civ 5, that was as soon as you hit commerce.
Yes, there we go.
And yes, that is literally the point. It's good that they made this change. Now we get away from silly pretend strategies about building mass units and go into actual strategies that would incorporate building an economy to create an economy that can support those units.
Well, let's not go that far. We've taken a step in that direction.
Yeah, it's a
anyway.
step in the direction.
We're not there yet,
Yes.
but we're closer.
Anything else from the patch notes that have not been highlighted through my top 10 and our related offshoots?
Well, for me, I'm just going to point out that I think the complainers won with the increase the cost of religious units. I think the complaints won rather than actually learning how to play the game.
Can't they just put those on a separate layer so that when somebody sends crap through your borders, you don't care about it, doesn't restrict your own movement? Come on. That's like
No.
the only complaint I have about it personally.
Well,
Some scrubble
there's
send
two
a parcel
things.
through my land. They're no threat to win the game at all yet and won't be for the next 50 turns, but they block me. Like, screw
Yeah.
off.
No, there's two things in there. One is the, oh my god, why are religious units blocking movement when you're not at war? So we're complaining about, oh my god, there's like 5 to 10 apostles coming at me. What should I do? I can't handle that. You know, you can build inquisitors and just wipe them out, right?
Inquisitors? No, that's not right. That's not how you do it. You just declare war and stomp on them all.
Well, yeah, you could do that too.
There's that too.
People who go, I'm just going to declare war on you for this. You can, but you're going to get the warmonger hate for doing
I already
that.
have the warmonger hate, because screw the warmonger hate.
But in circumstances where you don't want the warmonger hate, you just build inquisitors.
I just don't like
Yes,
the nuisance
game mechanics.
factor. I mean, I'm fine with them coming through. I'm fine with them threatening religious fact victory. But man, don't clog up the map even more. Don't be a nuisance.
Yeah.
Just put
No,
them
for
in a
me,
separate layer, please.
no, I mean, it's okay if they're in a different layer or whatever. It's the blocking of not being able to pass them. That for me, that's
even worse. But I don't like that somebody can stand on a strategic resource with an apostle, and you have to declare on them or produce an anti-religious unit to be able to improve that.
Okay,
That's
but what if
stupid.
somebody stands on it with a builder? You'd still have to do the same.
You would
You'd
have.
still to
Well,
build a
they
unit
can't move
to
a
declare
builder
war.
into your territory without open borders,
Well, yeah, there's that too.
which is not true for the religious units.
Yep.
And this issue is non-issue. Like, there is no apostle blocking if they're on a separate layer. You just stand there all you want, but it's not going to do anything. You're just wasting your time with the apostle.
Yeah, it's little details like that. But that really wasn't the core complaint. There's stuff on the edges that definitely could be fixed. Other than that, I find it amusing. Adjusted AI understanding of declared friendship. It's just funny. What do you mean I'm your friend? Does that mean I can't declare war on you?
We assume that's adjusted in the proper direction, but
Yeah, it could be worse.
I like the word choice here. It's like, we made no guarantees, we made no promises. Pair that to the adjusted the AI approach to beginning and ending a war based on potential gain and loss. Again, we hope this is actually towards their favor.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else?
The score rankings are still stupid.
Yep.
Oh, that. The percentage and who you supposedly played like.
I think they need scalar for difficulty and scalar for map size.
What about you, Daniel? Anything else from the patch notes?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Then, in conclusion, the patch notes, just some very minor things. Added the ability to rename cities. Yay! More like we returned the ability to rename cities to the franchise, but okay, sure.
Yeah.
You hush. No one took your naming away. They just didn't add it.
That's why I said to the franchise, because they took it away on Civ 6 initial release. Oh, I'm so sad. Otherwise, under bug fixes, fixed some production, social policies, great people, and Pantheon bonuses that were not applying correctly. Whoops. Fixed an exploit that allowed ranged Emma Bard units to gain experience when attacking a district with 0 hit points.
What?
Yeah, that's a good fix.
Man.
Like, well, if you're using them for target practice, where's your target if you already killed everything?
My target is the corpse of the enemy. Whoa.
Yeah. Can I hit something that doesn't move or back?
Always the best. Fixed an issue where the settler lens would not always show the right information to the player.
Okay, that's not good.
Yeah. Actually, my favorite one was just because it prompted me to do, air quotes, a little investigating. The achievement for Queen and Country was unlocking too frequently. This is playing as England on a huge map, have a city on every continent at the start of the turn. According to Steam tracking of achievements, 2.5% of players have this.
How is
That's
that
too
too
often?
frequently?
Yeah.
So I don't understand this at all. My brain
I
hurts a
guess
little.
they were saying it was springing when people didn't have it.
I would hope
That must
so.
be what they mean.
I
would
that's
hope
what-
it was triggering too early. What it likely was is that it probably didn't count the number of continents properly.
Yeah, really,
It's
Steam
kinda-
achievements are not high on my list of things to worry about, but, it's good that they spent half an hour to...
They spent 30 minutes to fix it. Fact. Oh, we faxed it on the internet. It's true now. Way to go, John.
Yeah.
And lastly, which is kind of, it's nice that you added this, although I don't specifically remember it being requested, but there's a related request that's kind of a flip side of the same coin. Added a setup option, no duplicate leaders, that is enabled by default. This option prevents multiple players from selecting the same leader. Where's my option for specifically, again, saying I don't want this leader?
Yeah, I'd rather have a don't want the leader than prevent duplicates.
Yeah.
I would definitely want to be able to prevent duplicates, but not being able to ban a leader, is, especially for MP, is good, yes.
Yeah,
That way you could still go random and then like each of you have a list
Right.
of which
same
ones.
list.
Yeah, that's really one of the requests that we want is have the host be able to create a list of leaders that people can pick from and only from that list.
2 final points and then a question to John specifically because he's here because it's multiplayer. I'm still waiting for the restart button, but I would also like the game to remember my last game settings when I set up a new game. That would be nice.
Nice.
But to John, what about the team play on multiplayer? How big of a thing or thing is that? Because, of course, we still don't have that.
It is pretty huge still. I mean, Civ 4, especially teams were awesome. The level of excitement playing with, a Renaissance teamer in Civ 4 was probably some of the most outstanding fun games that you could have. Civ 5, of course, MP was kind of a bust, so that really didn't come into play. Not having teams, right now, we're still having fun playing duels and free-for-all games, but shared line of sight, shared protecting all that stuff that comes with teams, like using Cloverleaf and the distance. Well, if you're playing real teams and it's hard-coded, those limitations would go away because you're playing as a team. They need to go back and look at what they did with Civ 4 and basically at least meet that bar of teams in Civ 4 and Civ 6.
I'm certain at some point in your life you've had someone tell you the following, which could have been yesterday, it could have been last month, last year, maybe even last decade, back when you were a youngin', that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Oh, yes.
And you put it up on Civ 6 this soon? Yeah, no, guys.
Woohoo! Whole 80% off. It was awesome. Right up until
they revoked the keys and gave your money back. So at least they gave you your money back.
The problem is two things. One, Games Republic was the one who sold it. PC Invasion Store. And they were the ones in the wrong. But they were selling Steam keys, obviously. And Valve came along and went, you did what? For what? And revoked all the Steam keys. One, a lot of countries actually have you sold it, too bad.
Yeah, definitely the European Union.
Once that deal's done and money changes hands, it doesn't matter if you're an idiot. You have to actually take it. The other side to that is the fact that Valve went and burned all the Steam keys. On that note, not only did you buy it, but you bought it, took it home, and plugged it in, and then some other jerk wandered over and took it out of your house.
Right.
Yeah. Besides it being the mistake portion, if Steam says, sure, we'll sell you a bunch of Steam licenses, here you go, you can sell them now. It is now not your place to decide what that business does or does not do with those Steam keys with respect to pricing points.
Yep.
But do we know what the contract was? I mean, because they could have been selling them for Steam.
Yeah, there could have been you don't pay for the key until the key's sold.
Right. Back up a little bit, say I am actually an intellectual property lawyer. I graduated from the University of North Carolina. I work currently at Bold IP. So I do speak with a little bit of authority on this stuff. That said, all of this is legal opinion. In America, software is not really a product, it's a license. So when I was looking at this just from a legal perspective, I was like, well, they can probably get away with it since they're revoking a license. If you try to say it's like a shirt and a shirt is mispriced, no, they're not going to be able to come into your house and take the shirt back. Right?
Yeah. The argument that game companies are using, they're using that argument to get around actually having to pay to fix their games in case they choose not to. Because if it was a product, they would have to. And they would also be subject to recall laws and stuff like that. But you can argue that games are actually products against that because legal definition of product is very different.
Has anybody done that successfully in another?
I don't think anybody's tried to make that legal argument. But
they tried in America and failed.
But there are countries that have told Steam, guess what? You're on the hook for products. And this is on the case of sales.
Yeah, and this plays into the reselling games controversies too. Where do you own the game or do you not own the game?
And in some countries, yes, you own the game, which means it's a product, not a service. And that's in European Union. There was arguments about whether or not you owned the game for resale. And Steam had to allow people to shift keys around.
Yeah.
The worst part is the fact that they revoked the Steam keys. I think that's a bigger problem, and that might even be a problem in states or other where somebody could probably argue that Valve wasn't the one who actually sold the keys, and why is Valve actually stealing it back?
Right, that depends on what the legal agreement, sales agreement was between Steam and whoever's selling the keys.
The Star Wars Games Republic, as I mentioned, which is an affiliate of PC Invasion, which made the announcement. And I'm also wondering, you can kind of imply based on the announcement that Games Republic posted in terms of the chronology, like which came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it that PC Invasion went, oh geez, we made a mistake, Valve, you need to cancel the keys because we're going to turn around and refund the money. But the way it's phrased, it kind of seems like maybe it went the other way around. They say all keys are being revoked, unfortunately, in the first paragraph because they said we have no personal control over this. So when I hear we have no personal control over this, just tells me Valve tells Games Republic we are revoking the keys. And then in the next paragraph, we're really sorry, but we need to cancel orders for Sid Meier's Civilization 6. And yes, this was the deluxe edition as well. It was equivalent of $16 American, which is, this is a huge saving.
Yeah.
Quote,
Yeah.
no kidding. It's kind of one of those things where if Games Republic had said, look, we made this mistake, we're going to have to cancel the orders, therefore, Valve, you need to revoke the keys, because if we're canceling the orders and then we need to take the license back, but that doesn't seem to be what happened here. So yes, this has already been raised by Daniel and Matt. You kind of wonder what exactly was the agreement in terms of the reselling of the licenses.
The only way that Valve would have had a legal ability to go bonk, that was dumb, and revoke the keys is if Games Republic was actually a front for Valve.
Who did the people pay?
Not.
Yeah. Yes.
Right, but there are legal ways that you can set that up. They're not, I mean, front is a pejorative word, but they're a reseller.
They would have to be a Valve-related company, not...
Right. That's you don't have to disclose that, really. That could easily have been what they were, contractually.
So if you went to Games Republic and your receipt said, thank you for your purchase from Games Republic, then Games Republic has received the money, as opposed to, you went to Games Republic, it was kind of, as Magic was using the word front, kind of like a window dressing, I would say, said, for the Steam portal, in which case the money went directly to Valve, then, okay, then Valve could say, we got the money transferred to us, but that's less than what we said we should be getting, and then you would get, Games Republic, you would get the difference above that, but we didn't even meet the minimum one, so therefore we're going to cancel it. That's different.
Right. Yeah. And it could be that what Valve would get would be a percentage of the sales price. I mean, it depends on how the contract was set up.
I would think if it was a percentage, there would be some minimum dollar amount to go with that as well.
Right.
Like we would get a percentage. What is for certain is that this news item was an anomaly, and this event was an anomaly. Not because the pricing incorrectly. It's about the things that happened after the pricing incorrectly that made this intriguing.
I mean, I'm legally interested to see if Valve is going to sue them, or if the
people who had their accounts,
who bought their accounts, try to sue Valve. I want to know what happened. It's kind of entertaining.
Translation from Daniel. Dear Valve, I'm available.
No, definitely. I'm available for any kind of patent, trademark stuff too. We can help you out.
Support the ongoing PolyCast Patreon campaign.
Collective achievements.
Personal incentives.
Month-to-month commitment.
For more information, visit thepolycast.net/Patreon.
Call in today.
In North America, 301-637-7659.
In Europe, 44121-288-7659.
The only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about.
Log on to the series' official website at
thepolycast.net.
And then it's like, well, this is assuming, by the way, that you're at least charging this. So if you're selling it for at least $50, then we're going to get this percentage.
Blah 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 blah. We're almost done now.
Okay, thanks, Mackie.
I don't know if Mackie intended to mute or not, but that was pretty good.
I guess she just does not like legal talk, doesn't she?
Did she hit the deafen button instead of the mute button?
I think she did.
That's pretty awesome.
On a positive note, Steam just did put a sale on the entire Civ franchise, so at least 10% off.
Yeah.
We've come to the end of the episode.
That's right. We're going to help you out by stopping talking.
That is your cue, by the way.
No, that was his outro.
Zelda. We're not going to do the standard outro. We're just going to axe it. Okay.
Yeah, Daniel, stop taking the page from Mad Jin when it comes to the outros on these things, and do it right.
Yeah, you should copy me, not Mad Jin.
All right, so are we actually going to go?
Sooner or later.
I don't know. We can go, but may we? I just had
I don't want to get
could just mic drop out of here.
I don't want to get into legal trouble for copying Zaldar here, so...
Oh, I thought Mackie had already done that.
Right.
Okay, let's go.
Yep.
That'd be you, Zelda.
Remember
yeah, so
that?
Daniel, this
Bye. Thank you for listening. I'm Daniel.
Really?
And then reintroduce everybody, and this has been episode 270 of PolyCast. You know how to do this. You've been on the show before.
Yes. It's been a long time since I did this. This is Maki, been me and Team, Dan Quick, Majin, and Canuck Soldier. This is 207. I'm still doing it wrong? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're still doing it.
Okay, have someone else do this, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know what? No.
This is partially Dan's fault because he likes to do this and then not explain to people who have never been on the show or haven't been on the show in years what's expected of the intro and outro.
Listen. No.
The lesson is I should be listening to the show every week, obviously, and have things memorized.
The argument that Phil just raised is a little stronger when we're talking about the intro as opposed to the outro, because the outro copies the intro, which just happened.
You have to assume that, however, too, in order to do the outro properly on the first try without instruction.
There is also the noting that you're doing the outro, and if you have questions, you should ask questions beforehand.
Yes,
but it's okay.
Can we just leave now?
It's okay.
Bye.
We did the outro already. It's fine. It's covered.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, that's funny.
See ya.
Recorded November 26th, 2016. Civilization 4, 5, and Beyond Earth sound clips. Copyright Take-Two Interactive.
Copyright Civilized Communication at civcom.net.